Members, this is the appointed time. We have a quorum. I call this meeting to order. Welcome to the meeting of the panel on financial affairs. Item 1, information paper issued since the last meeting. Members, since the regular meeting of the 7th of April 2025, the panel has received 2 information papers. You will find the details in the agenda. Next item, items for discussion at the next meeting. The next regular meeting will be held at 10:45 a.m. on the 2nd of June 2025. The administration has proposed to discuss 2 items. First, briefing by the Financial Secretary on Hong Kong's latest overall economic situation, and 2, full portability of the Mandatory Provident Fund. Members, do we agree to discuss these 2 items in the June meeting? I see no objection here. Next item, item 3, briefing on the work of the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. I see that the officials are coming in. We're joined by Mr. Eddie Yu, Chief Executive of Hong Kong Monetary Authority, Mr. Arthur Yun, Deputy Chief Executive, Mr. Howard Lee, Deputy Chief Executive, Mr. Darrell Chan, Deputy Chief Executive, as well as Mr. Archie Ng, Executive Director. Before the meeting, the Hong Kong MA has already issued a paper for our reference, and they've also tabled another set of documents. So first and foremost, let me welcome Mr. Eddie Yu and his team to our meeting. He will unpack this item for us. I think that a lot of members would like to ask questions, so please be succinct in your briefing, Mr. Yu. Thank you, Chairman. As usual, perhaps I will start by going through the macroeconomic situation, and then I'll give the floor to my colleagues to brief members on the work of the Hong Kong MA. First, on the tariff war, it has brought downward economic pressure for the global economy. Now, if we take a look at the chart on the left-hand side, comparing to the Great Depression in the 1930s in the United States, you will see a substantial spike in the tariff rate here. And you can see some wild swings in the financial market, such as the S&P 500, as indicated in blue. Just days after the announcement of the tariffs, the S&P 500 dropped by 12%. Then a suspension was announced, and the market was pacified somewhat. As for the red line at the bottom, as you can see, the volatility index also reached new heights. And you also see this growth forecast deteriorates. This is a forecast by the IMF. It has dropped from 2.7% in the beginning to 1.8%, not to mention the impact that would be brought about by some countermeasures and the tariffs themselves. The market anticipates increasing inflationary pressure in the U.S. economy. So there is a higher likelihood for the U.S. to experience stagnation. As for the Asia-Pacific region, again, it is also under pressure as well. As you can see on the left-hand side chart, the Asian market relies quite heavily on the U.S. export market, and on the right-hand side you will see a slowdown growth. In the middle, you will see that in terms of currencies, the rates have maintained steady. In the past, major currencies in Asia have risen because of investor sentiment, and there are also some short selling of Asian currencies. So in the past few days, we've seen a surge in the currency rates in Asia. As for the mainland, According to the recent announcement, growth is maintained at a momentum of 5.4%, which is quite good. For the first quarter growth, it has been brought about mostly because of exports, and there may be increased activities before the tariffs are in place. But at the same time, if we take a look at the blue the blue bars, we will see a gradual tapering or picking up. And in the middle chart, there is this orange line. Basically, the volatility pattern is by and large on par with the global market. Housing market. For first-tier cities, as you can see, things have stabilized as marked by the red line because of the market stabilization measures rolled out. And there will also be other stimulating measures to boost domestic consumption. Now, onto the right-hand side chart, as you can see, the proportion of consumption now outweighs export. So the stimulus measures will help cushion the impact brought about by U.S. tariffs. As for Hong Kong, we are a highly open and small economy, so inevitably will be affected by the tariffs. In the first quarter, we have recorded growth by 3.1% because of export of goods. As for the next quarter, we need to wait and see. Matters such as trade deals, tariff wars, and countermeasures to be rolled out by the mainland will definitely affect us. So there is a lot of uncertainty. Now, there are ways to cushion this pressure. For example, you can see that we have diversified the export markets. The yellow line for North America has seen a gradual decline, whereas for exports to ASEAN and Middle East markets, as you can see, there is an increase, all due to the measures rolled out by the government to help tide SMEs over. The other cushioning effect is one from the tourism sector. As you can see, things have gradually picked up for inbound visitors. This blue line shows visitors from the mainland, and red shows visitors from other regions, and you can see the increases. And in fact, the visitor figures have gone up by more than 10%, and just during the May Golden Week in May, the figure has reached 16 million. The financial market on the whole remains robust, and transactions are smooth in the beginning of the year because of developments in artificial intelligence such as DeepSeek and other supporting measures rolled out by the mainland. We saw influx of capital. So far, we've seen corrections in the stock market in Hong Kong, but on the whole, there is a rise of 15%, and we are faring quite well comparing to the global equity markets. But we will also need to keep in view other developments such as mainland policies and tariffs, and also measures that can promote IPOs in Hong Kong. Now, for the Hong Kong dollar exchange rate, starting from mid-February, the rate began to go up because of influx of capital and the development of AI technology, etc. In the beginning of April, when the U.S. announced trade tariffs, as I mentioned, investors had to adverse risk, and as a result, they bought Hong Kong dollar instead as arbitrage. So Hong Kong dollar has since been on the strong side, and in fact, throughout February to April, we've seen influx of capital because of the Stock Connect southbound trading. Because of this need of investment, they needed to convert renminbi into Hong Kong dollar. There is a demand. In fact, on 3 occasions in the past few days, the strong side convertibility undertaking had been triggered, and some $116.6 billion of Hong Kong dollars have came in, and starting from tomorrow, the figure will reach $161.4 billion. Now, the triggering of the strong side convertibility undertaking is due to a number of reasons. First, investment in the stock market has driven up demand for Hong Kong dollars, including the Stock Connect southbound trading scheme. The second point is about the sale of positions. As you can see, for some other Asian currencies, the same has happened, including the currencies in Singapore, Thailand, Malaysia, etc. The third reason is that there will be continuous demand for Hong Kong dollars. This will be felt by the market. For example, we have a number of major IPO listings that will soon happen in Hong Kong. Now, the other point is that in the coming 2 or 3 months, dividends will be made out, and there will be a high demand for Hong Kong dollar. Now, although the strong side convertibility undertaking has been triggered, the market on the whole has remained stable. We've not detected anything untoward, as the total aggregate balance of the banking sector has reached $160 billion. As you can see in this diagram, it doesn't really reflect the increase in the total aggregate balance here. But as I mentioned, starting from tomorrow, the total aggregate balance will go up, and as a result, HIBOR rate will also come down. Because of a bigger capital pool, there should be greater liquidity. So HIBOR rates should come down. Looking ahead, we need to have regard to the Hong Kong dollar demand in the stock market and in other markets. And the Fed Reserve will also hold meetings in May and in June. And if interest rates are slashed, then that means interest rates in the United States will be higher than that in Hong Kong, and there may be arbitraging activities. This is something we need to keep in view. So there may be many factors at play affecting the buying and selling of Hong Kong dollars. But at this point in time, we see a bigger total aggregate balance, which means in the short term, interest rates should come down, which is a good thing for Hong Kong, because we have enterprises having taken loans, and we also have people having taken out mortgages. And this can help ease the pressure because of capital inflow. In the first 3 months, that is in the first quarter, the total deposits also went up by 3.5%. And for Hong Kong dollar deposits in particular, it rose by 5.1%. And that's also the trend in April. Whereas for housing prices, they have fluctuated. Starting from the beginning of this year, according to the Rating and Valuation Department statistics, the housing prices dropped by about 1.7%. In April, because of the tariff war, there were fluctuations in the housing market. Now, it was announced in the budget in February that the threshold for the maximum value of properties enjoying the $100 stamp duty will go down from 4 million to 3 million. So for the first 3 months, transaction figures have increased to 5,300, comparing to 3,000 in the previous months. As for the figure in April, it will be announced today. We believe that things will remain stable likewise. The U.S. tariff war has increased downside risk to global economy as well as uncertainty. Whereas for the U.S. market, likewise, there is an uncertainty regarding U.S. interest rate, and that this trend may not be easily detected. As a result, there will be continuous fluctuations in the market, especially there may be some risk-averse activities. And meanwhile, in the mainland, the government will continue to roll out measures to support the economy, especially to boost domestic spending. This will somewhat affect our own economy. Over the years, however, we have diversified our export markets. We have also rolled out different measures to help boost tourism and other sectors. We hope that all these measures will help tide us over. We will continue to monitor very closely changes in the market so as to ensure stability of the financial market and our currency. So we just need to do our level best so that we seek progress whilst maintaining stability. And these are the major points I'd like to make. I'll give the floor to Arthur.
Thank you. Well, please be as succinct as possible. First, on the credit situation in banks. First, you may notice from the PPT here that in the first quarter, the total loan amount has taken on a reverse trend, and in the first 3 months, we have increased by 0.6%. The annualized rate is 2.5%. So loans for use in Hong Kong and outside Hong Kong have both increased in amount. And because of trade financing, because of seasonal adjustment, there has been a drop. And people will be looking at the quality of the loans as well. Towards the end of last year, compared to the end of third quarter, the classified loan ratio has dropped to 1.96%. We don't have the figure for Q1 yet, but an initial look seems that the figure will be more or less the same. From a regulatory point of view, what matters more is whether the risk is manageable, and our assessment is that it is manageable. And the provision made by banks is adequate. Well, excluding collateral, the provision ratio is 60%, and including the collateral, the coverage ratio is 145%. And in the recent past, we have spent much resources in coping with the impact arising from the tariff war. In April, we have, together with some legislators, met with business representatives and banking representatives in early April. We launched a host of measures. In the interest of time, I will not go into the details, but these there are some targeted measures targeting at certain activities, say, for example, import and export. We have asked banks to suitably extend the repayment for trade facilities, for example, 90 or 120 days. As an extension, we receive positive feedback from the sector. Well, they have not started using such facility, but some enterprises are making inquiries with the banks on the specific arrangements. Going forward, together with the trade representatives and legislators, we'll look at what further support can be extended to businesses, especially SMEs, to tide over their difficulties. Another thing that we are looking at or focusing our regulatory efforts is fraud prevention. Online frauds and phone scams are very challenging, and the police have been making announcements regularly on the latest situation. Well, you can take a look at this graph or chart. I believe legislators are familiar with the measures that we have rolled out, and we are doing work on many fronts. And we are amending the banking ordinance so that banks can more speedily and easily share data of individuals. And if banks identify certain individual accounts which are involved in frauds and scams, we would like to protect the banks, and banks can share the data so that the banks can respond more expeditiously. The relevant bill has gone through the scrutiny of the Bills Committee. The work has been completed, and I thank members for your support. And then next week, we will go back to the in-house committee, and then in early June, the second and third reading debate will resume. And going forward, we will be talking to the trade as to what preparation work is needed so that the data can be shared more smoothly. Apart from these legislative arrangement, there are also some other legislative proposals on banking supervision, especially on amendment of some subsidiary legislation. In the interest of time, I will not go into the details of all of these. And let me highlight the last point, because at the last meeting, some legislators have asked about how HKMA is implementing the Protection of Critical Infrastructures Computer Systems Ordinance implementation. Now, HKMA is a designated authority under the ordinance. We are one of the two designated authorities. We are responsible for the banks and airport infrastructure and SVF facilities and the related critical infrastructures. We have three sets of responsibilities. The HKMA will work on the first set of responsibility. The relevant authorities or organizations must have certain framework to protect their critical infrastructures. They must have adequate defensive facilities to protect themselves. And alert system, well, the alert system has to do with the monetary authority, and we also have a regular alert system. So we will be considering these three sets of responsibility. As the next step of our work, we will compile a code of practice. The relevant work has already started, and in the process, we will consult the relevant trade. And if members have any comments or questions on this particular front, I can give you more details. Now, I'll defer to Daryl. Yes, please be brief. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Development of financial market. This chart is about Hong Kong's offshore renminbi business. Well, there has been good growth. And in terms of the loans, the outstanding renminbi loans towards the end of this quarter, it's up 50% compared to the end of last quarter. So there is a strong demand for RMB loans. The trade settlement has declined slightly because the base figure is quite high last year. And in the past 3 years, we are having a 20 to 30% growth. And this time, the growth has slowed down a bit. Well, what will fare out depends on the impact of the tariff war. And then about deepening financial cooperation between Hong Kong and the mainland. In January, we have, together with the PBOC, announced measures to jointly implement certain measures. And Bond Connect, we have enhanced or extended the settlement time, and there are two measures under which the Bond Connect bonds can be used as a collateral for renminbi repurchase business. In terms of the real economy, towards the end of February, we have launched the HKMA Renminbi Trade Financing Liquidity Facility. We are using the agreement with the PBOC so that we can provide banks with liquidity, and in turn they can provide liquidity to the sector. And the initial amount is $50 billion in liquidity. In terms of facilitating residence transactions, we have added 3 participating banks which can open bank accounts by attestation, and we have published an FAQ to help people to better deal with cross-boundary remittance scenarios. Well, we will continue to maintain close communication with the market and the mainland regulatory authorities to launch new measures. Developing Hong Kong's financial platform. In the bond market, the latest figures show that last year, Hong Kong remains the key bond arranging hub in the region. We are top in the list, and Well, in the past 10 years, we are in the top place in 9 years, and we will be helping the government to issue bonds. We would help the government issue the third batch of tokenized bonds. Green finance. We are working with international partners and financial institutions who will organize a Hong Kong Green Week in September. Stablecoins, thanks to the support of the LETCO, the Bills Committee has finished the scrutiny, and the second reading debate will be resumed on the 21st of May. Supply chain. Last year, we established a working group to study with industry on how Hong Kong can actively play its role as a financial hub amidst global supply chain reconfiguration. There are specific recommendations, say, for example, on digital trade. We are happy that the FS in this year's budget said that the relevant legislation will be amended and that some trade documents will be digitalized. We would also be looking at the greening of the supply chain. We will develop treasury centers. We will enhance banks' regional business capabilities. So we would do work on all these fronts. So that's my presentation. Next one, Mr. Lee. Thank you, Chair. Now I'm going to talk about several projects. I will pick the more important ones in the interest of time. Financial infrastructures, and many members are very familiar with the subject. Let me highlight 2 particular projects. We are working with the PBOC to implement linkage of fast payment systems in Hong Kong and the mainland. The progress has been smooth. We are going into a testing stage with some mainland banks, and towards the middle of this year, such service can be rolled out. In the initial stage, we will be embarking on just some simple functions, for example, FPS in the initial stage. And once we get accustomed to the system, we will add more functions to the regime. So the details will be announced in due course. The second project, and that is the last point, is about Project Cargo X. In Hong Kong, this is the first time we are working with different government departments and the relevant enterprises to gather data from sea, land, and air transport. And all these data will be linked up in the same platform. And once that is established, we can further add in the CDI, commercial data interchange. And by that, the cargo trade in Hong Kong can be fully digitalized. And then financing with the banks can also be made smoother in the future. And as a result, the efficiency and competitiveness of the trade can be further enhanced. I thank the a dozen or so organizations from the sector participating in this project. And the next one is a central bank digital currency, CBDC. We have talked quite at length about this, so I'm not going to spend any time on this subject. If members have any further questions, I'll be happy to answer them. And then next one is about investment performance of the exchange fund. I'm not going to go into detail of each and every PPT. The main message from these several PowerPoints are that from January to March, the environment or the situation was quite good. In the first quarter, the Hong Kong stocks market has been doing well, growing by 15%, and the US dollar sovereign bond yields have fallen, and we are generating quite a good income. But I would like to mention particularly in April, and especially on the 2nd of April, new tariffs were being imposed by the US, and there were a sea change in the market, as pointed out by Mr. Yu. I'm not going to repeat the points he made. Now we can see from this point in the Q1, the investment income is quite good. $67.2 Hong Kong dollars. covering bonds, Hong Kong equities, and foreign exchange. Because of the depreciation of the US dollar, our income in that front is quite good. As I said, because of the great volatility in April, so the investment amount has fluctuated substantially. And we said in the past that when we talk about looking at the performance of the exchange fund, we should not be just looking at quarter by quarter or year by year, because we have long-term objectives, and our aim is to preserve the capital amount so that it can support the stability of the Hong Kong dollar.
So much for the exchange fund. I will very briefly go through the last point, which is about some initiatives under the Hong Kong Mortgage Corporation Limited Mortgage Insurance Program. In light of the changes in the housing market, this program has met the needs of some prospective homeowners. So the program is still running smoothly. The other highlight is about the SME financing guarantee scheme. We have the 80%, 90% guarantee products. As for the 100% dedicated loan scheme, basically the scheme has concluded, but we are offering principal moratorium. Now, I want to highlight one point, that is about 100% of debt or the bad debt rate for the 100% loan guarantee scheme for SMEs. Last reported to members in February, the figure stood at 13.5%. And since then, more bad debts have serviced, and by the middle of April, the figure has increased to 14.8%. The Hong Kong Mortgage Corporation is now working very closely with banks on processing these bad debts or proceeding with debt restructuring. So perhaps I'll stop here, Chairman. Thank you, Hong Kong MA, for the presentation. The floor is now open. 4 minutes question and answer included Sunny Tan, Chen Chunying, Johnny Ng, Adrian Ho, Edmund Wong, So Chung Wing, Deputy Chair, Rock Chan, Holden Chow, Starry Lee, Tan Ka Piu, Lee Chun Kung, Tan Yue Heng, Wendy Hong, Duncan Chiu, Tang Fei. We start with Dr. Sunny Tan. Thank you, Chairman. The tariff war has brought a lot of uncertainties in the external environment. Now, just now, the Hong Kong MA highlighted the market fluctuations for our benefit, and we've been talking to the sectors, and we are still perplexed because we are at a loss as to where we should take our manufacturing bases, or to where should we make investments, etc. Because of these uncertainties in the beginning of April, I, along with the BPA, have publicly urged the banks not to call loans during the most dire times of the sector. I thank the government and the Hong Kong MA for supporting us. I hope that we will continue to receive support. Especially, it is very important to maintain this support for SMEs to keep them afloat. With risks come opportunities. So my question is on offshore renminbi. Let's see if you can supplement your answer in relation to measures to widen the investment or the capital pool, as well as diversify the product base, including derivatives, etc. The other point is about the working group on supply chain. Now, we're in the manufacturing business. We are very interested in the work of this working group. Specifically, we'd like to know how, through these working group, we can attract more mainland or overseas enterprises to set up presence in Hong Kong, and then using Hong Kong as a springboard to help them tap external markets. Especially when it's likely that they will set up treasury centers in Hong Kong as well. So I see ample opportunities for us. I'd like to have answers to these questions, please. Mr. Yu. Since the announcement of the tariffs, we have set up this SME loan coordination group, and this task force also comprises members of the Legislative Council. Banks have also given an undertaking that they would be as tolerant as possible. Now, there is also a mechanism. Apart from this task force, we have regular meetings. Meanwhile, we'll be happy to take suggestions and views from members. And if you run into any problem, do ring us through the hotline. You can approach us, and on a case-by-case basis, we'll determine if we're able to help. Now, apart from discussing with banks, we also urge banks to help SMEs in different ways, such as help them upgrade and transform and go digital. We should also help SMEs expand the business. All these will take time, but at least banks have a role to play. The second point about renminbi's internationalization, be it loan products or bonds, according to the figures, we've seen some impressive results. And in fact, a month ago or so, we rolled out the renminbi-denominated trade facilities. It is run on a pilot basis. Now, depending on the result, we may expand this scheme. About this supply chain working group, again, we welcome views and suggestions. In fact, we share the same goal. As Hong Kong or mainland enterprises go global, it is essential that the financial services sector in Hong Kong can provide one-stop support so that, together with digitalization, we can help them with financing and going global. Next, Mr. Ronald Chan. Thank you, Chair. 3 questions. First, about the exchange rate. Like Mr. Eddie Yu just now said, we've bought in US dollars, and the total aggregate of Hong Kong dollars will reach $160 million. So my question is, every time you need to hastily sell off US-denominated assets for the assets to be converted into Hong Kong dollars and invest in Hong Kong dollar-backed assets. Now, if it happens too frequently, will it affect the return of the exchange fund? Let's say if it happens a number of times within a year, will it affect the net profit of the exchange fund? The next point is about MoneySave. Earlier, I went to Chengyi. I talked to some of the elderly people. I also publicized this MoneySave service to the elderly people there. I received positive feedback. They're interested. However, they've also told me that instead of telling the elderly people about this initiative, you should talk to the government or talk to banks. So will it be undertaken by the Hong Kong MA, or will banks be responsible for explaining matters to local communities? The next point is about tokenization. I understand that the third batch of tokenized government green bonds will be issued. As for traditional bonds, there is a proposal for them to be tokenized as well. So when it comes to tokenization of traditional bonds, what is your target? Will you first tokenize green bonds? Well, I'll take one of the questions and then I'll give the floor to Daryl. About the inflow of capital, what we do is we buy US dollar and we sell Hong Kong dollars. There is no need to realize any assets in the exchange fund. We buy US dollar, but in that sense, we're able to create a bigger balance of Hong Kong dollars. And for the US dollars bought, we use the money to invest in Hong Kong dollars. So it's a kind of a business. However, we have a passive system. And we need money coming in for us to be able to buy US dollar and sell Hong Kong dollars. There is no selling of assets involved. I'll give the floor to Arthur to take the next questions. About MoneySave, perhaps Mr. Chan would know that some banks will also roll out MoneySave on a pilot basis in the coming quarter. They will target particular service users such as elderly people and students. I fully agree that it is important that we reach out to the target users. It is important to promote this measure. For example, we need to explain to the elderly users what they should do if they need to use the money, what steps they should follow to unlock the safe, so to speak. So we'll be working with the banks, and we'll also work with other relevant organizations to promote our services to the elderly, such as the elderly centers. We also would like to work with any interested local community organizations. Daryl. Tokenization of bonds. I'd like to highlight a number of points. We will launch the third batch of government green bonds soon, riding on the success of the previous two tranches. As for the tokenization of other bonds, they could be infrastructure bonds or green bonds, depending on how ready they are. The other point is about tokenization of traditional bonds. That means traditional bonds that have already been issued. We will study whether there are ways to tokenize these bonds that have already been issued, so that when it comes to repurchasing or transaction in the secondary market, tokenization can help smoothen the process. The third point is about the issuers. We will provide suitable subsidies to them because of the higher costs involved comparing to the issuance of traditional bonds. We need to give them incentives. So this is about our work on promoting tokenization of bonds. Next, Mr. Johnny Ng, 3 questions. First, about the strong Hong Kong dollars in recent days, and on a number of occasions, the strong side convertibility undertaking has been triggered. The total aggregate balance now stands at $161 billion. In fact, we had something like this before, and I remember the Hang Seng Index rose from 22,000 to over 30,000 points. So I want to know whether this is a long-term trend, and whether this will help the capital market, because there will be new listings in the market by the end of the year. The second point is about the dedicated 100% loan guarantee scheme. I remember 2 or 3 weeks ago, I got hold of this figure, as at the end of February, the bad debt ratio for under the 100% loan guarantee scheme was 14% or so, and now it's 14.8%. In just 2 months, we've seen a surge of 500 plus cases, totaling 9,900. So can you tell us more about the definition of bad debt? Does it mean that of all the 9,900 cases, those putting up guarantees have all gone bankrupt? The other point is about the principal moratorium. For the 50,000 odd cases, how many of the borrowers were able to pay on time? Because we have a bad debt rate of about 25%. Now, supposing that this amount is now in exceedance, are there any backup plans? My last question is about banks. I understand that a number of banking laws will be involved in sharing the risk of cryptocurrencies. Now, according to the sector's views, many enterprises are turned away by traditional banks. So are there ways to deal with this issue? I will take the first question first. That is about the whether the Hong Kong dollar will remain strong in the longer horizon, whether the strong side convertibility undertaking will be triggered again. That depends on a number of factors, such as the transaction volume in the stock market and continuous influx of capital under the southbound trading of Stock Connect scheme. There are also other factors at play, such as the paying out of dividends of Hong Kong stocks and IPOs. All these will generate demand for Hong Kong dollar. There are also risk-averse activities by individual investors or banks. So it is possible that we'll continue to see influx of capital that will trigger strong side CU, but we also need to consider the interplay of these factors. In the short term, the interest rates in Hong Kong should come down somewhat, which will bring a positive effect to the capital markets.
First on the bad debt, please. Thank you, Chair. You asked about the bad debt ratio. Yes. Well, it doesn't necessarily mean that the guarantor has gone bankrupt. As long as they fail to repay within the scheduled time, then they are considered bad debt. We will liaise with the banks, we will go after them, and if they refuse to pay again, then there might be a debt restructuring, and then we will file for a petition for bankruptcy as well. So this is what we are doing. Now, for those repayment on time, and also the principal moratorium arrangement, they take up a small portion only. So a majority of the enterprises are repaying in the normal way. Last question, please. Well, crypto asset exposures, we are implementing the Basel III requirements. So if the it has to do with how we are calculating the risk weighting of banks holding crypto assets. So will the amendment exercise help with the banks? That will help the banks if they hold crypto assets, because the calculation method is made clear. But to our understanding, the banks may not necessarily put the crypto assets in their bank accounts. So it depends on whether the banks have the capability to provide such a service. We encourage the banks to provide such services. Mr. Adrian Ho, thank you. I have 2 questions. First, I am all in support of the HKM's work in 2024. The income from equities takes up 60%, but then the income from U.S. Treasuries in the first quarter 20 is dropped by 36%, and that affects your income. Is the government still rely on U.S. dollar assets as part of your portfolio? Would you consider adjusting your investment follow to spread the risk arising out of geopolitical tensions? And in 2023, the net margins has narrowed down, and the loan demand has weakened, and in the first 2 months it has dropped slightly by 0.5%. Given the low interest margin, how would you help banks deal with the pressure? Would you be launching measures to stimulate more credit growth? I'll take the first question. There are 2 parts to the exchange fund, and that is the support portfolio, which supports our monetary base because we are on the LERS. So you can understand in this support portfolio, they comprise short-term, high liquidity US dollar denominated assets, and we can if in case of an outflow of capital, we can readily sell such assets. And then the other part is about investment portfolio. Like what Mr. Ho said, we hope that through this investment portfolio, we can fetch a long-term reasonable income. And the portfolio is very diversified. We have US dollar assets and other assets as well. Towards the end of last year, if you look at our annual report, the exchange fund, when both parts are taken into account, the US dollar denominated assets took up 79%. And a couple of years ago, it was over 90%. In the past few years, we have gradually adjust our investment portfolio and buy more non-US dollar denominated assets, including renminbi, euro, Japanese yen, and British pound denominated assets. So quite diversified the portfolio there is. And investment products, we are also diversified. We have equities, bonds, and also private equity funds as well. So that's how we are dealing with our exchange funds. In the past few months, the credit growth has slowed down, and that has to do with the demand for credit. And it's not because the banks are tightening the supply of credit. That's not the case. In the past few years, the interest rates on the mainland are low compared to Hong Kong, and the enterprises may opt to borrow on the mainland. So as far as there has been a pressure on the demand of credit in Hong Kong. Now, responding to Mr. Ho's question, banks would very much like to increase their credit portfolio, and then the deposit to asset ratio is rather low. We encourage them to offer more loans, but then the interest rate is not conducive to do that. And because of the inflow of capital, when the interbank rate can be lowered, then that can help with driving the growth in credit. From the bank's income perspective, we don't have to be unduly worried. Around 1/3 of the income comes from the fees charged. For example, fees in relation to investment activities and services. And when there might be more customers doing investment because of the low interest rate, and hence driving up the income of the banks as well. So banks do have their a regime to balance their books. So you don't have to be too worried about the income, the overall income of the banks. Mr. Edmund Wong, thank you. I would like to ask the HKMA about the tariff war, because in June, the $580 million of U.S. treasuries are maturing, and reciprocal tariffs are being imposed, and there has been a selling off of U.S. treasuries, and the market is very pessimistic about the outlook of the U.S. treasuries. There are many U.S. dollar denominated assets under exchange fund, including the U.S. treasuries. Under this new situation, how will it impact on the exchange fund? If the U.S. continues with its reciprocal tariff policy, what will happen to Hong Kong? And under what circumstances will we reduce our holding of U.S. denominated assets? And then also the commercial property market its market sentiment is very low, and there are many call loans activities, and many banks are seeing a rise in the classified loan ratio, bad debt ratio. And what would the price level be before the administration will do something? Okay, I'll take the first question, and then the other will tackle the other questions first. Last month, we see there are fluctuations in the U.S. treasuries. There are different reasons. One is the tariff war, and the second, because some holders of U.S. treasuries would like to diversify their investment. And there are also technical reasons, because many hedging funds are engaging in basis trade. through hedging. And when risks rise, they will sell short their treasuries and sell all of their treasuries immediately. And going forward, afterwards, the situation has stabilized. So as far as the exchange fund is concerned, like I said, the support portfolio, well, the portfolio responsible for maintaining our monetary stability, we will be holding short-term, high liquidity US dollar denominated assets. But then for the investment portfolio, we're diversifying investment into different currencies, different assets. And for US treasuries that we are holding, we are trying to hold shorter-term treasuries. While the longer-term bonds are more subject to impact by the market volatilities, we are adopting defensive measures by shortening the period of our U.S. treasuries. Now, for commercial properties, well, we have been watching for a long time the market development. We are seeing also mainland property developers operating in Hong Kong, and we are committing a lot of regulatory resources in this market, and we monitoring them very closely. Loans related to property take up only 15% or 14% of the total loan amount in that sector. And many of them are related to quality property developments. And Mr. Wong talked about calling of loans. Like I said, well, calling loans may not necessarily be bad. Under what circumstances will banks call loans? Many of the time it's not because of the value of the collateral has changed. And more often it has to do with whether the borrowers have the capability to repay. And if the borrowers do not have such capability, loans will be called. And it will not be right to say that since commercial property prices have dropped, then banks will call loans. So that's not the case. That doesn't make sense. Anyway, we believe that the risks are still manageable right now. Dr. So Cheng-Wing, Deputy Chairman. Thank you, Chair. The HKMA has adopted a multi-pronged approach in your work, and many of the figures look very good on your presentation. And following up on what was just discussed, and on what Deputy Chief Executive said about the commercial property, I would also like to follow up on this subject matter. And you said that the RML negative equity is 40,700 in the first quarter, and compared to the last quarter, it's a rise of over 2,300 cases. Well, the media said it was a record high since Q4 of 2003. It's the record high in 85 quarters. What happened in 2003? That was the days of the SARS. And now we are coming to this scenario or situation. And Mr. Yu seemed to be very optimistic about the figures he presented. Hong Kong is a free capitalist market. And there is frequent flow of capital and assets. And things may fluctuate. That's understandable. The residential property market is intertwined with the lives of Hong Kong people. But then there are also commentaries which sound very pessimistic. The CEO of Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank said that in the extreme case, the property prices will further drop to by 30.8%. But then he added that the possibility of that happening is only 5%. So he was mentioning an extreme case, but it's very likely that this extreme scenario will happen. We are seeing the tariff war. So will the extreme case scenario happen?
Likewise, Goldman Sachs have remarked, well, why don't you save some time for the Hong Kong MA to give you an answer? No, I need to elucidate my point. According to them, the figure could drop by 20 to 25%. So the overall sentiment is quite pessimistic. Whether banks call loans or not, people may scramble for the sale of assets. So my question is really whether there is any contingency plan. Deputy CE. Well, I think Dr. So's question is again on residential mortgage loans. If we take a look at the number of cases in negative equity, then that I don't think is meaningful just to look at the figure. It's just a computation process. Of course, when housing prices drop, we'll see more negative equity cases. We need to consider the overall economy and the socio-economic situation as well as the risk exposure of the financial market. What is important is the overdue loan ratio in the RML market, and now it stands at some 0.1%, which is extremely low. So I think when it comes to risk exposure in the RML market and the number of negative equity cases, we don't need to be pessimistic at all. In fact, many of these negative equity cases are involved in a very high ratio under the mortgage insurance program or other housing loan programs, and we impose additional conditions. For example, they must live in the property in question, they must have stable income. And these are extra safeguards to ensure that loans can be repaid. So I think we should focus on these matters instead of just taking a look at the number of the numbers. Mr. Rock Chan, I have two questions. Many colleagues have touched on the issue of reciprocal tariffs. My question is this: if in the short term the U.S. is unable to reach an agreement with our country on tariffs, then what is the Hong Kong MA's thought on economic growth for the whole year of Hong Kong? That is, by how many percent will growth be hampered? Would it be 0.5% or more? The second question is about U.S. dollars. Now, it's common knowledge that since the U.S. President Donald Trump came into office, various measures have been rolled out which have caused people to have less confidence in the U.S. dollar. The U.S. dollar is the major international currency in circulation around the world, but the things will be different because many investors are now turning to alternatives to diversify risks. Like Mr. Eddie Yu said, even the Hong Kong MA is trying to lower the proportion of U.S.-backed assets in their portfolio, regardless of bonds, equities. They will diversify their portfolio to include Europe, Asia, Japan. So if it continues, that means if there is less confidence in US dollars, then we need to be mindful about the exchange rate peg at 7.8 dollars, Hong Kong dollars. So I want to know if this trend continues, how will it affect our economy and our capital markets? Mr. Yu. Right, to take the first question, if China and the United States are unable to get to the table to negotiate a deal or even reach an outcome, then as two major powerhouses in the world, not only Hong Kong, they will have a bearing on not only our economy but on the economies around the world. But at the same time, like I said, we need to consider the supporting measures to be rolled out by the central authorities and how much capital will flow to Hong Kong. As mentioned, since there are many factors at play which will affect the global economy, we do not have do not have estimates. Perhaps you can put this question to the government economist. Now, as for U.S.-backed assets, I think Mr. Chan has made a very good point. In fact, there have been noises in the market. In the past 2 or 3 years, you may have noticed that many investors have been investing in the U.S. market, including equity and bonds of the United States. And because of the dip in April, investors have now begun to contemplate alternatives. And this is a strategy that we've heard from investors in the market. And in fact, we are diversifying investments in different markets such as Europe, Asia, Japan, etc. In Hong Kong, we enjoy this advantage. At this moment, the majority of global investors are still holding mostly US dollars. And since Hong Kong dollar is pegged to the US dollar, you don't need to worry about the exchange rate. And a weak dollar a weak US dollar will bring benefits to our economy. It will make us more competitive, be it outbound travel or inbound travelers spending money here. To some extent, we can see these ancillary benefits. Next, Mr. Holden Chow. Thank you, Chair. The first question is about the housing market and the Hong Kong MA's take. I think it is very important to stabilize the property market in Hong Kong, so I agree with other members. I think the Chief Executive already explained the matter quite clearly today. So it's all about how we hammer home the message. For example, what is meant by a negative equity case? Most people would just look at the dollar sign, and if the housing prices drop, inevitably some of the properties will become negative equity. Just like the call loan situation, I think we need to dispel this misconception. So this is a reminder for the Chief Executive. You should hammer home the message to the public, because there may be demand from abroad and from the mainland because of different reasons. They may wish to buy a property in Hong Kong. We have mainland talents coming to Hong Kong, for example, and they may wish to buy a property, and that means a demand for local properties. So I think that this message should be disseminated to the public more extensively to salvage confidence. I don't think this is reaching out. This message has reached out to sufficient audience, so you need to do more. The other question is about assets, and that the Hong Kong MA has agreed to exercise prudence in holding US-backed assets, and I fully agree. Now, coming back to SMEs, We need to help them tap markets other than the U.S. market. So when it comes to export credit insurance, is there any support for SMEs to tap new markets other than the U.S. markets? Do you have any idea? Is there anything you can share with us? 2 questions. See. First question, the answer is the affirmative. Of course, we will disseminate messages clearly. And like Arthur said, you can't just look at the negative equity case figures. The overdue loan rate now stands at 0.17% only. So that's an extremely low figure. And if this borrower living in this property is repaying on time indefinitely, the loans will not be called. Right, you need to level with the public and make sure this message is hammered home. The next point is this. As you can see from our slide, over the past few years, the Hong Kong government as well as the Hong Kong MA have encouraged the development of more export markets, and gradually we're seeing a drop in the export of goods to North America and a gradual increase in export to the Middle East and ASEAN market. And we also have a supply chain working group. We work with the Hong Kong invested enterprises. We help them with financing matters, and we'll continue to work with banks. In fact, there is this working group under the Hong Kong Association of Banks. They help do the so-called corridor business. That is, we act as a go-between between the mainland and the Middle East as well as the ASEAN. And we'll take it further. Ms. Starry Lee. Thank you, Chairman. We're concerned about the implications of the tariff war, and we're part of our country. We must give support to our country in fighting this tariff war. The Hong Kong MA, together with different regulators, have done a lot, and the Chief Executive attaches great importance to this matter as well. Of course, it'd be best if this tariff war could come to an end in the short run. But it may not be. As discussed by other members, tariff war could just be the first step. In this day and age, another war, such as the tech war or a financial war, may be waged. So when it comes to the mechanism, can you tell us something about the channel of communications between the government and the central authorities so as to instill confidence in the public and tell the public that we are at a united front with our country and that we will support the country in fighting the tariff war? The second point is this. I believe that definitely you will have a plan B. Can you tell us the various backup plans you have? The other point is about fraud prevention. The Hong Kong MA has done a lot. Despite extensive promotion and publicity on preventing fraud, every now and then we still hear about major fraud cases, and it's really disheartening. I think the Hong Kong MA should mull over how publicity is done to make sure people understand in light of the changes in the financial market. Because we're talking about average Joe in the street, they may not know about the new products. They may not be able to catch up with changes in the financial world. So you should step up public education. I'm not even talking about grassroots. Even for those keen on investment, they may not know about the latest trend, such as, for example, cryptocurrency or CBDC, central bank digital currency, that you mentioned on page 25. So you should do more to educate the public to make sure that they don't get scammed. I'll give the floor to Arthur later, but let me take one of the questions first. We need to be fully prepared and we need to do our level best. And it is important to maintain buffer in our financial system. We have some $420 billion of foreign currencies in our reserve. We also have a high liquidity ratio and capital or high liquidity position rate in our reserves. And this is essential to maintain confidence of international investors in our system and in our society. And that is why when it comes to a financial war, confidence is key. We need to ensure that there is buffer. The second point is that we have a more robust regulatory system comparing to 10 or 20 years ago. We do require data to be disclosed. For example, we have oversight over transaction data as well as the hedge funds and the OTC products. The third point is, like Mr. Lee said, we also need to draw up contingency plans. We have different response plans to cope with different possible scenarios. Even in the most extreme scenarios, we have them covered. And we also have the preparedness response plan. In the process, we work with the regulators and the government. We work with them very closely. And we also have a standing liaison mechanism with the People's Bank of China. I will give Arthur the floor now.
Anti-fraud. Not just Mrs. Dory Lee, who feels disheartened because of fraud cases. We also know a lot about many fraud cases, and we are very saddened to see such cases. On the policy side, one fraud case is too many, so we should have zero tolerance towards such cases. Ms. Lee is right in pointing out that we should strengthen our public education work. We should do it in a down-to-earth way instead of sophisticated ways. Say the public should abide by one or two principles. If a message comes through your WhatsApp, online, or phone calls, if you just randomly click onto the super links, the consequence can be very grave. So fraud cases always start with the clicking of our super link. Even if you do so, do not provide sensitive data like account information, and then you can protect yourself. And if you receive a call, don't believe in the caller too easily. So if we can promote these principles extensively and inculcate it into the minds of the public, then many of the fraud cases that we are seeing can be prevented or avoided. Mr. Tang Ka-Piu, recently, recent media reports are saying that the SME guarantee scheme may be abused, and some people with malicious intent are trying to defraud the funding from the scheme, and they even abscond with such money on hand. So how are you working with the law enforcement agencies to step up your work in this area? Because we are talking about public money. We should put public money to boosting our economy instead of benefiting the perpetrators of the scheme. And today, we are talking about a global trend, and that is we should diversify U.S.-backed our assets and do not depend too much on U.S. backed assets. And we are going to pass the stablecoins bill very soon. And the stablecoins are mainly pegged to or linked to the U.S. dollar. Now, and the issuers of stablecoins are packing their stablecoins mainly to U.S. dollar nowadays. And just now we said that we should not be focusing our assets onto U.S. backed assets. So what is the chief executive take of this situation? And then our mother country will not be seeing a growth as high as that in the past 30 years in its economy. How will it affect our offshore renminbi business? If there are uncertainties in the external trade of a mother country, what will happen? Will people use more renminbi, or what will be the situation? I'll take the second and third questions, and Howard will take the first question. First, about stable coins. The stable coins worldwide reflect the dominance of the US dollars in the world economy now. Now, after the bill is enacted, you can use Hong Kong dollar or renminbi as the backing for issuing Hong Kong dollar or renminbi denominated stable coins. For some cross-border settlement, you can use Hong Kong dollar denominated or renminbi denominated stable coins. There might be a gradual shift. And then offshore renminbi business. I think the outlook is quite promising. People are thinking of using more renminbi for settlements instead of US dollars. The use of renminbi as a trade settlement medium has doubled, and 30% of the exports of the country's exports are settled in renminbi, and the trend will continue. In the past 20, 30 years, the trade settlement in renminbi in Hong Kong has grown by 20 to 30% every year. The rate for growth in the country may be slower, but anyway, it is rising. And I think we do have great potential of development in that area. Howard, I'll be very brief. SME guarantee, loan guarantee scheme, if there is non-repayment or overdue payment, well, there are two categories. Maybe the enterprise runs into difficulties, and the design of the scheme is that liquidity can be provided to the relevant enterprises, and the situation may improve for the enterprises in the future. But then ultimately there might be some who cannot make it. We will anyway go all out in recovering the debt, and some are borrowing the money with a malicious intent. And for this group of people, we will go after them to the end. In the media reports, you see that we're working together with the police and the ICAC to take actions. And prosecutions have been made. And there are some who refuse to answer a call and so on. We will chase after them with all our efforts. And we might even file a bankruptcy petition against the guarantor or the borrower. Mr. Lee Chen-kong. Thank you, Chair. I have several questions. First, interconnectivity and cross-boundary cooperation. The Wealth Management Connect has been enhanced, and the scope and the quota have been expanded. Would you be including more asset categories in the scheme to further invigorate the southbound and northbound trading, so that Hong Kong and the mainland can develop better? The chief executive also mentioned our role as a renminbi hub. Are there any measures to help innovate renminbi-denominated products? Would you be invigorating the dual counter arrangement? You talk about the renminbi-denominated stable coins. I believe that this is something that we want to see being launched. Second question is risk management and challenges because of the geopolitical situation and the tariff war and trade barriers and so on. And you talked about a lot about liquidity. Are you worried about the confidence of international bodies on us? And if, say, international credit agencies continue to adjust downwards our rating, what will happen? What strategies will you deploy in response to that? 3 questions. So can I defer to Darryl to answer these several questions? Thank you, Chair and Mr. Lee. Connectivity with the mainland. You cited WMC, Wealth Management Connect. We launched the 2.0 version. We're still seeing whether there is further room for enhancement. While the amount, the quota can be further adjusted, and we have included the Category 4 products already. And we hope to include high-risk products in the future. And then on sales and promotion, can we make further relaxation so that banks can better serve their customers? So we are trying to further enhance WMC. These are the options that we are looking at. And you are talking about renminbi-denominated products. We are working on that front. In our presentation, we said that we are trying to launch more risk management products. We have launched a Swap Connect for some time. Can we widen or broaden the products covered under the Swap Connect? And you talk about the renminbi dual counter arrangement. And the regulators in Hong Kong and mainland are looking at this. Well, this can be included in the southbound trading. As for the detailed timetable, we're still working on it. We share the same goal as yours. And for the credit rating from international bodies, we will carry on with work in that front. We're talking about several aspects. Some government bodies or official bodies, and we are liaising closely with the central banks in different parts of the world. And you may refer also to the credit rating agencies. In our daily work, we also maintain close liaison with them. They may not have the right perception of Hong Kong, so we will try to convince them of the real situation of Hong Kong by the use of data and other information and figures so that they can come up with a fair assessment of Hong Kong's situation. That's what we're doing. Dr. Tan Yueheng. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chief Executive. I have 3 questions. I had the 110 page PPT on hand. Page 40 is about the credit growth in Hong Kong and the relevant asset quality. The classified loan ratio is 1.96%. That has risen slightly compared to the past. Is it because the classified loan ratio has actually risen, or is it because of the loan quantity has shrunken? What are the factors affecting this ratio? Because we're talking about 1.96% in the classified loan ratio. The second question, and page 48 is about the capital adequacy ratio of banks. We have a high figure. It's 21.8%, and the international minimum requirement is 8%, and the mainland banks is 10% or 12%. So 21.8% and 8%, well, it's a far cry from 8%. So the public may not understand why the figure is 1.8%. For other international cities like New York and other cities, Is the CAR as high as this one? Because of the high CAR, does it mean the supply of money will be tight? Because, well, the high figure has persisted for a number of years. The third question, renminbi offshore hub. Hong Kong is a offshore renminbi hub. There are commentaries saying that if U.S. persists in the way it is faring, then we will have less confidence U.S. dollar. Yes, the confidence in U.S. dollar has weakened. Then that will help in our efforts to promote Hong Kong as an international renminbi offshore hub. How can we seize such opportunity to further develop Hong Kong into a renminbi offshore hub?
3 questions. I'll give the floor to Daryl. To take the first question about the 1.96% of classified loan ratio at the end of last year, we take a dynamic approach in calculating this ratio. For example, a change in the denominator will cause a change in the ratio. We also need to write off some of the long-term classified loans. And in fact, as mentioned by Dr. Tan Yue Heng, in the past 3 years, the total loans have shrunken in the past few years. So inevitably, there is pressure for the classified loan ratio to go up. But what is the real reason for this increase to 1.96%? I'd say that it has to do with the denominator and denominator. Because if we take a look at 1.9% as recorded in the third quarter and also 1.96% in the last quarter, it's really difficult just to give you a straightforward answer. Now, about the capital adequacy ratio, the international minimum requirement is 8%. Now, the Basel Committee on Banking Supervision gives a minimum requirement of 8%, and that's just the bare minimum. All member states are required to set the statutory minimum ratio at 8%, but no regulator will impose the same minimum requirement of just 8%, because normally you need to take into account the risk and the relevant weightings. Around the world, this figure sits roughly between 10 to 16%, and Hong Kong has a 21.8% CAR, comparatively higher than that in other countries. It hasn't to do with our requirement, but our way of taking into account risks. In fact, this figure stood at 21.8% in the previous year. It was higher because in January 2025, we put in place the latest Basel III arrangement, and in terms of calculating the weighting to risks, we are able to put in place a better CAR. The majority of bank assets have to do with the residential mortgage loans, and under Basel III agreement, the risks weighting for RMLs are on the low side, and as a result, the CAR computed is on the lower side. So there are many factors at play. We have not categorically required banks to maintain a high level of CAR. Next question. Very simply about the renminbi hub in Hong Kong, I believe we have some unique advantages. We are in this unique situation that we're able to enjoy these advantages, and we take forward our work on a number of fronts, such as liquidity. As you can see, we have 1 trillion renminbi in the pool, and we've continued to expand this pool of trade facility for renminbi, and the and the amount now stands at 100 billion renminbi. So in terms of liquidity of the pool, it has increased by 10%, and I believe there is room to ask for more. And we also have other supporting measures to promote liquidity, such as the buying back of renminbi-backed assets, repurchasing of bonds and collaterals. We also have some mutual access programs that can provide liquidity. The third point is about infrastructure. We have the CBDC, mBridge, and CMU. These are initiatives that can give better protection to renminbi deposits as well as unleash their potential. The final point is about publicity. In fact, we have been working on corridor economies such as the Middle East and ASEAN. We have mounted publicity to promote the advantages of using renminbi. We've also worked with the counterparty banks to address pain points. So we take a multi-pronged approach in promoting renminbi business. Next, Dr. Wendy Hong. I thank the Hong Kong MA for their briefing. I have two questions. Amidst the trade war, the trade sector in Hong Kong is under a lot of pressure. They need to tap emerging markets such as the Middle East and ASEAN. For mainland enterprises, likewise, they need to target the Middle East and ASEAN markets. However, the emerging markets adopt a very different mode than traditional North American markets in terms of their financial market and the mode of business. For example, trading in the emerging market means that they are usually given short-term contracts, and it's very difficult to get financing. And for emerging markets, they have skipped the previous stage of traditional face-to-face trading. They've gone on to e-commerce, and naturally that means digitalization. We need to get data so as to analyze their operational data in order to gauge their credit rating without the need to provide collateral. The third point is that inevitably these traders will need to apply for certificate of credit, which comes with high costs. And I think we need to grasp this opportunity to go digital so as to boost efficiency and save costs. We should help them upgrade and transform. The Hong Kong MA just mentioned that last year the supply chain working group was set up. I think this is, of course, a necessity, but we should also digitize the operations in terms of taking out loans and financing. The whole logic has to change. I hope that the working group will dive in and take a closer look at how we can cater for the needs of an emerging market so that we can be a financing hub. My second point is this: since early April, when the tariff war was announced, the Hong Kong MA already put in place some flexible arrangements to provide some buffer period in the repayment of loans to keep the SMEs afloat. Now, this is a good deed, but we have no idea when this trade war will end, how long it will go on. Now, if there is a war on a protracted basis, what preparation is put in place by banks? For example, do you have any idea about the loans given out to enterprises related to exports and the proportion of such loans to total loans to ensure that the local banking system remains robust should anything go wrong? We totally agree with Dr. Wendy Hong that we need to go digital. We need to digitize not only the processes but also the use of currencies, etc. Second point about trade facilities, it accounts for some 4 to 5% of total bank loans. It's not a very high percentage. Usually, we call it liquidating in the short term. After completing the trade deals, the borrowers would repay. So in terms of risk assessment, is not really a difficult task. And like Dr. Wendy Hong said, in fact, we do have relevant digitalization work in approving trade-related loans. We don't just rely on the letters of credit. Digitalization is a process we'll continue to take forward. The exposure at the moment is still within control. 4 minutes, may I remind members, be succinct. Duncan Chiu, I have questions about cryptocurrency and digital assets. I am happy to learn that this is part of your presentation, albeit brief. Other members also mentioned the similar points. Banks are quite prudent about adopting digital assets or cryptocurrencies. As a result, there is an add-on premium and banks are rather reluctant to take it forward. I understand that even in the global community, Hong Kong government has sent representatives to join the discussion so as to lay down clear directions of development. So if the financial tools are tokenized, that means there is not additional risk and that they should not be penalized. I think the target date of commencement is the 1st of January 2026. I hope that this can be expedited because cryptocurrency is just part of the package. It, of course, is a good thing for banks to have clear guidance on risk control. At the same time, in terms of developing products, investing in financial infrastructure, we need to provide incentives from all prongs. So with enactment of legislation, things will be clearer. We have issued 2 tranches of tokenized bonds, providing some $2.5 million of subsidy, and it's a snowball effect. We need to develop products for banks to sell and for the business to be profitable, for things to go on. Do we have sufficient incentive for more bonds to become tokenized? Now, another major point is about stable coins. Well, I hope that this bill will be passed on the 21st of May. There are 3 regulatory sandbox projects. Some enterprises have participated and completed the first round of tests. 2 or 3 months after passage of the bill, will licenses be issued? And after that, like the CE said, will you diversify the products apart from US denominated? Will there be other products denominated in other currencies? What about renminbi stable coins? Do we have a sufficient pool of renminbi to support renminbi denominated stable coins issuance? We need to have the whole package to help the development of the whole sector. See, we have another sandbox project called Ensemble. This project Ensemble is basically a meeting point of all different projects. It comes in a triangle. At the top level, we have tokenized assets, be it tokenized bonds or tokenized money market funds that some capital firms are interested in. They go to the top of the triangle. And then in the middle part, we have settlement, such as tokenized deposits, stable coins. And then at the bottom, we also have the central bank digital currency, CBDC. So you will find the whole ecosystem here. And there are different segments in this sandbox. After passage of the bill relating to stablecoin, we will roll out a licensing mechanism licensing regime as quickly as possible. Now, tokenization. Please understand that there is a process. it takes time for the markets and for investors to learn about tokenization or digital assets so that we can gradually adopt the new system. Next, Mr. Tang Fei, 2 questions. First, page 34 of the PowerPoint. As of the 15th of April, 4,800 applications were approved under MIP. And then on page 10 of the slide, you talked about housing prices fluctuations. As at the end of March, for some consecutive months, you've recorded some 400 negative equity cases. My question is about the MIP mortgage insurance program. Has the Hong Kong MA conducted any robustness test? Have you referred to any data? Are there any risks? Second point, as asked by other members, this is a question on the foreign exchange rate or its peg with Hong Kong dollar. My question is not about whether we have a rich reserve of US dollar that forms the peg. I'm talking about the uncertainty of the US dollar rate, which will also bring uncertainty to our exchange rate. Now, this uncertainty is brought by the U.S. economic situation because of the U.S. bond, because of tariffs. They will have a great bearing on the U.S. dollar. They have different conflicting goals. Sometimes they say they want to safeguard US dollars rate. Sometimes they want to go for depreciation. So these are conflicting remarks, and it's rather opaque because in early March, US President included 5 cryptocurrencies as the currencies in the US Fed Reserve. So what will be the impact on their strategy of US dollar hegemony because of these conflicting remarks and strategies? There will be a lot of uncertainties in US dollar.
And also the development of renminbi. Well, let me cite a simple example. The chief executive mentioned the internationalization of renminbi, and then is used as a medium for international settlement has risen in ratio. And renminbi is entering into a lot more exchange agreements with other currencies. And it is, on the one hand, trying to cushion it against the impact on SWIFT because of the geopolitical situation. And it is also have a bearing on the US dollar hegemony. Our country doesn't want to be constrained by the US dollars. So please leave some time for the administration to respond. My question, in the mid and long term, does the MA have conducting any studies? Are you collaborating with the research bodies of the country? You should not be just looking at the impact in the short term. Yes, let me answer the first question first about the mortgage insurance. We have looked at the stability. 90% of the approved applications were from first-time home buyers, and maybe a majority of them have become negative equity cases. Even if that is the case, the default ratio is just only 0.17%, and overall, the default ratio is just 0.13%. So the risk is manageable. I would not be worried at all. And also, the mortgage insurance has comes with stringent criteria as well. Now, US dollar versus renminbi, you must understand this. Right now, whether we're talking about global investment, financial assets, we are majority investing in US dollars. If you talk about trade settlement, we're trying to diversify the settlement currency. But then 70 to 80% of global trade settlement is done through the US dollars. So it takes time to make the shift. And maybe the US dollar will remain the dominant currency for some time yet. Have we talked to the mainland authorities? Yes, we did. We talked to them about connectivity, about developing Hong Kong into an offshore renminbi hub and internationalization of renminbi. We talked to them on the short, medium, and long-term plans. Next one, Mr. Chen Kim-po. Thank you, Chair. This meeting is meaningful because at this occasion, the Chief Executive and the HKMA colleagues have addressed a lot of misunderstanding or points that are not clear to the public. And because of the pact, you have to buy US dollars and sell Hong Kong dollars. And that's something good because you are actually printing Hong Kong banknotes, so to speak. If Hong Kong dollar is weak, then that is good for Hong Kong economy. We don't have to be worried. And then also explained the situation in relation to negative equity cases. You should publicize more on this front. Several years ago, counter-cyclical measures were implemented, and a lot of people were buying their own flats. Hong Kong. People should live in Hong Kong and they have to pay rent and they have to continue paying their mortgage. So the key lies in not having the banks calling loans casually or randomly. Why do I have to talk about this subject? Because in recent past, many experts have talking about the property prices dropping further. Some said it's even 30 to 50 or 70%. You have to make clarification. You have to dispel such misunderstanding, or else people will be misled. So my question is very simple. I would like to ask about page 14. You talk about the credit growth rate. Annualized rate is 2.5%. It's the first time that it's a positive growth rate in 3 years. 2020, 23, 2024, 25 is the first time that we are seeing a growth rate. And banks seem to be unwilling to lend loans. My question is, for the 2.5%, how is it composed? What kind of loans has seen a growth? A brief answer here. There are 3 types of loans. Loans used inside Hong Kong, loan used outside Hong Kong, and trade loans. And the growth rate in the first quarter can be attributed to rise in the loans used in Hong Kong and loans used outside Hong Kong. And the loans for trade loans has slightly dropped. And there's a seasonal factor behind, hence the slight dip in the trade loans in the first quarter. Overall, the growth can be attributed to a broad base. Now, it's been several years after COVID, and if enterprises would like to borrow a loan, they would go to the mainland. They would already have gone to the mainland, rather. So there aren't many who would still like to go to the mainland to borrow. And then people have to have different considerations as to where they will borrow the money. So there is a rise in the loan demand. Let me emphasize this. Mr. Chan mentioned, and I also said the same, in the past few years, the total loans have shrunken. And that has not to do with a problem in the supply of loans, but rather there has been pressure on the loan demand. We see that enterprises have repaid loans in Hong Kong and then go to the mainland instead to take out a loan because of the lower interest rates there, because of the cost of borrowing there is lower. So I have to draw a line. Next one, Ms. Carmen Khan. Thank you, Chair. Many members and also the chairman have mentioned about our preparedness in response to the trade war. And I have to remind the authorities that we have to be alert to the financial risk. And I thank HKMA for watching over the situation. And the chief executive talked many times about why I have to maintain the LERS. and we are worried about the U.S. Treasury crisis. You have once pledged that you would keep a close watch over the situation, and then you must also keep a close liaison with the mainland authorities. And I know that the HKM has done a lot in relation to connectivity with the mainland market. Earlier this year, at the Asian Financial Forum, the governor of PBOC, Mr. Pan Dongsheng, has signed an agreement with the HKMA. I'm particularly concerned about the financial facilitation at the GBA. In terms of purchasing of housing, there are facilitation measures being implemented. Is there any progress in relation to these facilitation measures? And then Wealth Management Connect 3.0, the chief executive said that you are going to expand the scope under that program. But looking at the figures, in terms of the number of investors, that has been an increase. We are talking about 140,000 investors, and the when you work on 3.0, would you learn from the experience of 2.0? Would you be working on the types of products? Would you be putting in special measures in terms of risk management? What kind of approach would you adopt? Thirdly, I would like to commend the HKMA for expediting your work on amending the banking ordinance. Mr. Yun referred to fraud cases as well. You would be also working on the sharing of data, and you would be sharing data of individuals among the banks. The relevant legislation has been scrutinized, and I hope that you can speed up your work. The Policy Bureau is FSDB, and what about the preparedness of HKMA in implementing the program? Can I ask Arthur to talk about the connectivity issue? First, about the GBA. There is a new policy on purchase of flats, and earlier this year we have issued another FAQ about cross-boundary remittances, and we use real cases to illustrate. We said clearly that there is a real transaction, and you have receipts, and all you need to do is to provide such evidence to the banks, and then the money can be transmitted. And apart from issuing FAQs, we have also worked with the banking sector to go through the different items one by one, and we will follow up with them after the measures have been implemented to see what other difficulties encountered. We will continue to liaise with the mainland regulator authorities and rationalize things. And then WMC again. Every time when we would like to put an enhancement, we would learn a lesson from the program implemented previously and see whether there are any pain points. We will increase the number of products. There are 4 types of products under different risk levels. We would be expanding the scope. The individual quota, whether we will be raising that. We will be using more convenient sales approaches as well. All these will be taken into account. Banking Amendment Ordinance or Bill. We know that the House Committee will look at it on the 16th of May, and the second reading and third reading debates will resume in June. Anyway, we have started communicating with the banking sector, and once the bill is enacted, we will implement the data exchange and sharing of individual accounts among banks. That will be done as soon as possible. All right. Let me try to sum up. Members are very concerned about the operation of the LERS, or rather the exchange fund, and also the trade war, the tariff war. And we have comments on the LERS. And we have spoken about the U.S.-backed assets and the fluctuations concerning these assets. From what I heard, I understand that there will not be any change in the policies. And we have confidence, and we emphasize that you should further or maintain liaison with the People's Bank of China. And the second thing that I would like to mention, one of the things that we discussed is the legislative proposals, which involve the Basel Committee's requirements. To my understanding, they have requirements on prudential treatment of crypto asset exposures. And there will be updating of their requirements. And the target implementation date is 1st of January 2026. And some market players have told us that the Basel Committee released a report in December 2022. From that point onwards up to now, there have been many changes in the market. Well, we should be using more blockchain technology. That's the mainstream view. And people in the US, Europe, and Britain, or the governments that might not have fully adopted the suggestions of the Basel Committee. And since many parts of the world are already implementing the requirements, it's just right that we should be adopting the same requirements. We should not then, however, move ahead of the others.
Many members talked about tokens. The SAR government is also committed to promoting that. I just hope that we can remove obstacles to promote future development. Just very briefly, we've chosen the 1st of January 2026 as the target implementation date because this is the date set by the Basel Committee. And basically, all member states will adopt the same target implementation date. Are we ahead of others? If you know market development elsewhere, 2 or 3 years ago in Europe, an arrangement was put in place relating to cryptocurrencies, especially there are requirements on service providers, and it is not that we are getting ahead of others. Chairman, you just mentioned the permissionless blockchain. At the moment, this is not accepted by us as per requested by Basel III. However, this matter is still up for discussion. We have not finalized matters. We need to, of course, consider the market development. So be reassured, we will keep in view the situation. So once again, I thank the Hong Kong MA for coming. That's the end of this item. Next, item 4, briefing on the work of the Financial Services Development Council. Let's invite the administration to come in.
好，出席呢部分嘅會議呢，我哋就有金發局嘅主席洪丕正先生啦，亦都有歐景倫博士嘅行政總監嘅，咁我哋亦都有財富局嘅陳浩濂副局長。咁如果準備好之後呢，咁我哋 首先即係歡迎財富局同埋金發局嘅代表出席啦。咁我哋就首先會邀請金融發展局主席洪丕正先生咧作簡介，跟住之後咧就再請財富局副局長陳浩濂先生咧就簡短發言。咁時間交俾主席洪主席。
多謝主席啊！咁今日我係第一次以金發局主席嘅身份啦出席立法會財經事務委員會啦。咁好榮幸得到政府嘅委任啦。咁希望未來能夠為金融業出翻一份力啦。咁事實上香港嘅金融業呢係香港嚟講嚇，整體嘅 GDP 係佔嗰個好大份比嚟嘅，係佔咗香港 GDP 差唔多25%啦。咁亦都係喺唔同行業之中，喺全球嚟講呢係其中一個係好有競爭力嘅一個行業。咁然而今天我哋見到嘅經濟也好。
However, at the same time, we are having some external headwinds in this complex landscape, especially geopolitical tensions. I think you must have watched the news, and definitely we are seeing changes unseen in the century, and the global order is being shuffled from multilateralism to unilateralism. And in the process of this financial war, there must be fluctuations and uncertainties. With risks come opportunities. Hong Kong should also get on board, and that in the face of this changing global landscape, we should also grasp the opportunities and give play to our advantages so that we can continue to find new opportunities in this new era. When it comes to the financial sector, we also need to do a number of things. The first one is to expedite the restructuring of the supply chain, because this will affect where money goes. We should also consider the relocation of capital, be it globally or elsewhere. In fact, for capital from the mainland flowing out to buy foreign assets, at the moment the amount is still on the low side. The third point is that the market is aversing risk, and this will also drive up demand for more currencies and a greater use of renminbi. My last point is about fintech development. That means new payment models, payment systems, and new trade patterns. In this rapidly changing landscape, we need to keep our edge, and that means we need to continue to refine our financial ecosystem so that with policies and proper supervision, we can be a hub for international talents of high caliber. We need to grasp opportunities. Now, as for the FSDC, there are three priorities. The first one is to foster greater communication between the government and the sector. We need to listen to the views of the sector and conduct policy research on behalf of the government so as to enhance the competitiveness of Hong Kong as an international financial center. And we also need to promote our brand to the world. The last point is about training talents for our financial sector. We need to attract talents as well. Now, the FSDC has achieved a lot under the leadership of my predecessors, so I'll go through them very quickly. For example, we issued 7 research papers on different policies covering various areas, such as strengthening the competitiveness of Hong Kong's capital market, enhancing efficiency for the financial services industry, exploring the importance of green transition and impact investing, facilitating the internationalization of mainland's carbon market, and falsifying Hong Kong's role as a premier global insurance hub. The FSDC also worked in collaboration with an international advisory firm and published a report showcasing the latest development of Web3 and FinTech, setting forth Hong Kong's forward-thinking approach to the international market. On market promotion, FSDC has continued to participate in local activities and strengthen industry exchange and cooperation overseas, so as to emphasize Hong Kong's unique role in promoting financial innovation. We also have various activities. For example, we showcase to the Middle East and overseas markets the role of Hong Kong as a leader, as an advanced international financial center. We also work with our partners and allies, including traditional American and European markets. And in fact, next week I will go on an exchange tour in New York. Now, further on promotion, we've also signed some memorandums of understanding with our counterparts, including including MOUs with Beijing Financial Street Services Bureau, Shanghai Research Center for Financial Stability Development, Qatar Financial Center Authority, Istanbul Financial Center, Capital Market Authority of Kuwait, etc., to solidify our relationship. On human capital development, we hosted the Career Festival in collaboration with local universities and strategic industry partners. We help students explore career paths in the industry. We also foster exchange and networking with industry leaders, etc. In November 2023, we set up the Hong Kong Academy for Wealth Leaders, Hong Kong AWL, and since then we have provided a platform for knowledge sharing and training for family office sector, asset owners, wealth inheritors, thereby building a vibrant ecosystem. In the coming year, the FSDC will continue to make good use of the annual subvention to take forward matters relating to policy research, human capital development, and market promotion. Now, we are experiencing changes unseen in a century, and I believe that the APAC region will become the most competitive economic drivers in the world. Hong Kong is the top international financial center in APAC region, and we have the edge. We must continue to be flexible, and we must also grasp opportunities with the backing of our country. We should continue to expand our global network so as to enhance our market liquidity and vibrancy. Now, the financial sector is key to any economy. I look forward to working with different regulators and the government so as to create more advantages for Hong Kong and support the development of the industry. I thank the public and the Legislative Council for your support. Under Secretary Mr. Chan, would you like to say a few words? Thank you, Chair. I thank members for your support. In terms of policy research, market promotion, human capital development, the FSDC has made numerous achievements so as to support the government's policy goal of bolstering Hong Kong's status as an international financial center. Now, in 2024-25, the FSDC published a number of reports offering insights into a number of issues, such as the securities market and operations, as well as digitalization and transformation of the financial services sector, as well as how we can give play to our role as a premier global insurance hub, so that we can give play to our advantages under one country, two systems to enhance connectivity. The government will continue to follow up on these recommendations and reports of the FSDC so as to create impetus for future development. Last year, on the recommendation of the FSDC, we have taken forward a number of initiatives. For example, in June last year, we rolled out a proof of concept scheme relating to green and sustainable fintech. We provided subsidy to relevant tech companies to address pain points for local enterprises and we also help market develop use cases and complete the proof of concept process so as to promote extensive adoption of the solutions. Now, for maintaining market trading under severe weather, we started the mechanism on the 23rd of September. Trading will be maintained for securities and derivatives, including those covered by the Stock Connect schemes and post-trading hours, even under severe weather. And the stamp duty on new measure relating to stamp duty commenced on the 21st of December. And REIT will be covered so as to further enhance our competitiveness. The FSTB also forges a closer ties with our collaborating partners in overseas so as to enhance international cooperation and bolster our status as an IFC. In 2024-25, apart from the market promotion activities mentioned, the FSDC continued to work with a number of stakeholders such as the Beijing Street Financial Services Bureau, the counterpart, as well as the Capital Market Authority of Kuwait. We signed a number of MOUs to solidify the collaborating relationships between the Council and the counterparts. The other major area of work is human capital development. The FSDC hosted the second Career Festival to help young people tap opportunities and to provide opportunities of exchange with industry leaders. The Hong Kong AWL has been set up for more than a year, and it has rolled out a number of activities and events such as the Family Office Summit through forums and seminars. They've fostered exchange with the industry. In October last year, the FSTB worked with Bloomberg, the Hong Kong AWL Invest Hong Kong. It's rolled out a strategic guidance for family offices in Hong Kong. The Hong Kong AWL also actively followed up on the Impact Link or iLink initiative announced in the Wealth for Good Hong Kong Summit last year so as to promote a dynamic community or to promote the connection among family philanthropists. Together with the Hong Kong AWL, we will continue to urge the FSDC to do more so as to maintain our leadership in the global community and to further promote the depth and breadth of the financial markets in Hong Kong. The government will continue to support the FSDC in flexibly utilizing resources so as to take forward the key areas of policy, research, market promotion, and human capital development. We welcome views and questions from members.
Thank you. I'll open the floor to questions by members. Questions and answers included 4 minutes. Ms. Wendy Hong, Johnny Ng, Kaman Khan, Cho Chong Wing, Ronick Chan, and Mr. Edmund Wong. First one, Dr. Wendy Hong. Thank you, Chair. The FSDC doesn't have is not a sizable organization in terms of policy research, connecting with international bodies, and it has done a lot and has achieved good results. I have 3 questions on their work ahead and their budget. First, the budget is $50.7 million and $40.6 million is supported by the government, and the remainder comes from the reserve of the FSDC. What is the reserve amount of the FSDC? The budget last year is $46.2 million. This year is 10% up. I think we should spend where necessary. In the next 3 years, the government has to cut spending on average 2% a year, and will the government, will FSDC do something to in line with the government's initiative or efforts in that area? And one of the important tasks of the FSDC is policy research to help enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness. They have come up with forward-looking researches. I have suggested that they should conduct a research on impact investing, and then a detailed or in-depth report on this aspect or subject has been released. Now I'd like to understand what follow-up work will the FSDC do? Will the council do more advocacy work? Will the government proactively consider and adopt the recommendations of the FSDC? The FSD's past researches are centered around green finance, digital finance, and so on. The country publishes 5 articles, including green finance, sustainable finance, retirement finance, and so on. Well, the FSDC step up research on technology finance and protection finance and retirement finance, and try to exploit the potential of Hong Kong in that area, and try to contribute to the country by making use of Hong Kong's advantages. Well, let's ask Dr. Au to talk about the reserve. Then I will tackle the other questions. Thank you, Dr. Hong, for your questions. We do have an adequate reserve pool. We are prudent in coming up with our budget. We would be able to cope with the situation should the government cut our budget in the future through our reserve. Well, our budget is around $50 million. A majority of goes to research and staff costs. Around several million dollars will be spent on market promotion. This is not a big amount. Wow, all I can say is we should maximize the use of resources. We will spend the amount on marketing and various promotion activities. In the US and Europe market, we should do more explaining, because investors may have misunderstanding in the greater China market. We will be conducting researches on different areas. Every year, we will be able to finish 6 to 8 researches, and we'll pick subjects which have the greatest impact on the financial industry, which bring the greatest benefits to the sector. We are mindful not only about the quantity, but also the quality of our research. We hope to enhance Hong Kong's competitiveness. Mr. Joseph Chan, any supplement? On the resources, let me add, like what the member said, as our government is doing some consolidation of the finances, and in the year 2025 to 26, the allocation to the FSDC is around $46.8 million, and that is less than 634,000, down 1.3%. And that is in line with our overall budget consideration. But FSDC has to take forward its work effectively still, and the chairman said that they would look into how to make the best use of their resources, and they may have to seek resources from other stakeholders and to enhance their efficiency. On the FSDC's research, like I said in the opening remarks, the government will proactively study into and follow up on the Council's recommendations. When we receive their research reports, we will keep talking to the Council and try to implement the recommendations. The working groups will continue a dialogue with us, and they will present us with more detailed figures so that we can do further studies. The FSDC was established in 2013, and since then, the SAR government has accepted over 70% of the recommendations. For the remainder, it doesn't mean that we don't accept those recommendations. It just takes time for us to further study into them. The last point the member said about green and sustainable finance and also impact investing. Like what I said in the beginning, the SAR government has come up with a subsidy scheme for proof of concept on green and sustainable finance, and we are also issuing green bonds this year. And this is in line with the FSDC's recommendations in the past. And for the ESG recommendations made by FSDC, we will continue to follow up. Dr. Johnny Ng. The FSDC has been established for 12 years. It's done a lot of work, and it has contributed a lot to the high-quality development of the financial sector in Hong Kong. I have two questions and comments. First, Dr. Wendy Hong asked questions about the budget and expenditure. Every department has their own considerations on how to maximize the use of their resources, but we must be mindful of one point. Financial sector is our core sector, and it plays an important role in Hong Kong connecting to the world. Last year, I joined the delegation organized by the FSDC to Saudi Arabia, and we achieved very good results, and we have managed to take some ETFs to get listed in the stock market. I think it's an investment rather than an expenditure. That I hope that you should not cut back on the resources of SDC. And then on policies. And I think it's encouraging to learn that the government will adopt 70% of the recommendations of the FSDC. That means that the recommendations are practicable, are very useful. We mentioned about the report on Web3, and I think it's absolutely necessary for Hong Kong to do more on that front. Let me say this. The Hong Kong government has proceeded with a number of legislative amendments in this regard. But then when it comes to management, Hong Kong has done nothing at all. Say for small places like Cayman Islands, they have worked in that area already. And I think we should speed up our efforts. We should conduct more research. There are some 200,000 DAOs in existence. If we can attract them to come to Hong Kong, that works better. We do have an advantage in terms of our legal system in that area. We talk about smart contracts, payment of tax, and so we have to set things straight in those areas. Yes, I've had two questions from Dr. Ng, Chairman. So I'll try to answer first and see if Josephus has anything to add. I agree totally with what the member said. So I believe that a lot more resources should be committed to promotion. Not many cities are considered international financial centers: New York, London, Hong Kong, Singapore, and Tokyo. And Hong Kong is very competitive. And because of geopolitical situation and because of some media reports, a lot of investors have misunderstanding about Hong Kong. So we should do a lot more in promotion and publicity. We should not just be focusing on advertising or promotion campaigns. We should do more explaining. The board of directors of FSDC comprise senior management staff of the sector. So what they say carries weight. We should use such resources. We should try to leverage on such a high caliber board of directors to help us with our explanatory work. I agree that Web3 is the trend, and it will be digitalization of assets. It's definitely a trend. If you look at the Asia Pacific, well, the development of different countries differ, and two regulatory bodies, including SFC and HKMA, have come up with a number of regulatory frameworks to facilitate the marketplace to come to Hong Kong and not elsewhere. The clearer the regulation, the better it will be. But we must understand that the process will take time. We have the policies, we have the regulations, and we must have commercially viable models as well. So I hope that Hong Kong can open our doors. This is a regulatory framework. You come here, you will be protected. That's a message we want to drive home. So this is what we want to do.
I will extend this meeting by 15 minutes. Anything to add, Under Secretary? Just very briefly, I thank members for the comments. The work of the FSDC is of utmost importance. The SAR government also is in great support of the work. Now, about the subvention, I want to emphasize that for the 2025-26 estimates of the budget, you will see a rise in comparing to 2024-25. However, for the subvention for FSDC in 2025-26, the figure has dropped. Now, as explained just now, there is a difference, and this difference will be solved through the reserve of the FSDC. Next, Ms. Carmen Kan. Thank you, Chair. Now, we just received a briefing by the new chair of the FSDC. I understand that during an interview, Mr. Hong, the incumbent chair, has told us about an important mission as chair, and that is to promote Hong Kong. Now, I think that there will be questions on the positioning, on the nature of the work of FSDC. And in fact, the FSDC became a company limited by guarantee only in 2018. When the FSDC was first set up, the government had intended it to be a statutory body. Mr. Hong, since you from the financial sector, and Chair, I need to declare that I also work in one of the institutions in the sector. I think that the chairman should consider the terms of reference of the FSDC so as to elevate its status. In fact, it became the company limited by guarantee only in 2018 so that it could sign contracts on its own. And as a member of this Legislative Council, I think that we should follow something like the Trade Development Council in positioning the FSDC. Since you are new in office, Chairman, perhaps you should conduct a study into the positioning and nature of the FSDC. I think this would be worthwhile. The second question is about the board of directors, and that the board comprises members from the industry. You are also from the industry. So can you explain to us how conflicts of interest or perceived conflicts of interest are resolved? The third question is about policy research. The FSDC conducted a number of studies before. I think that the FSDC should do more than just a think tank. And on the basis of Web3 study, the FSDC can further explore the legal framework concerning the DAO, that is decentralized autonomous organization, and also the regulatory regime, because the legal framework or regulatory framework could help us promote virtual assets in the future. In terms of budget, I see that comparing to last year, there is an increase of $3 million. Can you explain that, Chairman Mr. Hong, or who would like to take the floor? I'd like to take this point, take the points other than the point about statutory body. I think that the matter should be left with the FSTB and the Secretary. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Ms. Khan, for the questions. I think we can all acknowledge the work of the FSDC over the past few years. Now, the Board of Directors comprises members of the leaders of the sector. So these directors provide flexibility and enhance the effectiveness of the work of the Council. Now, coming back to the positioning of the Council, it is exactly because of the flexibility that it enjoys. It can work in the capacity of a public body with and sign contracts and foster partnerships with other institutions, and that is why it was incorporated as a company limited by guarantee in 2018, so as to provide flexibility for the Council to fulfill its functions, and we believe that it has been effective. At first, the Council was set up in the form of a committee in 2013. It's been 12 years. We're now in 2025, and we've seen the expansion. For example, just last year, we saw the establishment of the Hong Kong Academy for Wealth Legacy. This is a breakthrough for the FSDC, so we will keep things in view and consider any proposals from the chairman or directors. To take the other question about the conflict of interest or declaration of interest, the FSDC has put in place its own declaration mechanism in line with the Prevention of Bribery Ordinance. The board of the FSDC is bound by the Prevention of Bribery Ordinance as well. Just to reassure members that we follow very strictly the requirements. Anything to supplement about the budget? For operational or administrative costs, they include cybersecurity, the cost for INT, as well as miscellaneous service fees. I'd also like to supplement the point about conflict of interest. This is a very good question. Very often when we undertake a research, we are supported by different experts. So we strike a balance. We do not allow any particular institution to dominate the research. Let me also supplement. We remind the directors in the board that if they come into the room, you must make sure that they wear only the hat as members of the FSDC and not the other hats in other capacities. So this is very clear. They need to have regard to the interests of Hong Kong as a whole. Now, when it comes to the point of a statutory organization, since I'm a market participant as well, whenever I talk to the outside, I want to maintain credibility. That means I know the ins and outs of the market. I'm also one of the market participants. So through this perspective, we want to enhance our credibility. Next, Dr. So Chang-Wing. Thank you, Chairman. Two questions. The first one relates to the Hong Kong Academy for Wealth Legacy. According to the budget, this year, a budget of $4.2 million is provided. The Hong Kong AWL comprises 3 staff members. Well, there is a lot on the plate of the Hong Kong AWL. As the name suggests, there is an agenda for the Academy. With this establishment size and budget, I'd like to know whether this tallies with the FSTB strategies on promoting family offices, because from data we learned that there's been a rapid growth in the number of family offices in Hong Kong. I just want to know whether the size of establishment tallies with the government strategies, because there are suggestions that in fact we are placing more emphasis over family offices than other forms of investment and wealth management. We want to build this ecosystem. So my question is whether the Hong Kong AWL will groom more talents in this regard. My next question in this, according to your presentation last year, you conducted 160 local and overseas market promotion activities. That's a huge number. The FSTB, Invest Hong Kong, TDC, Hong Kong MA, they also have similar promotion events. Is there any proper division of work? Is there any communication among these organizations to avoid duplication? Is there any central coordination to enhance efficiency? 2 questions, Dr. Au. These are very good questions. First, about the Hong Kong AWL. Additional resources will be provided. That means we'll recruit more staff. We optimize the use of our network. We have the board of directors and also the advisory panel comprising 17 stakeholders in the business of family offices with clout. At the same time, we also work with some eminent philanthropic organizations such as Bloomberg and also Hong Kong Jockey Club's Institute of Philanthropy, so on and so forth. And we also have a foundation, the France Asia, etc. So we tap into these resources to help build the ecosystem in Hong Kong. We have family offices, impact investment, arts and cultural investment, intergenerational inclusion, etc. These are the priorities of the Hong Kong AWL. Collaborating with government organizations for overseas promotion. Now that's another good question. As the chairman just now explained, this is an organization comprising experts from different sectors. So it's a cross-sectoral organization. And very often we talk to the experts and officials in another country in closed-door meetings. We're able to share in depth our insights, and it's very important that we have this close collaborations, especially during overseas visits. Under Secretary, Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Member, for the questions. I think that the question has been answered by my colleague, but I'd like to supplement from the government's perspective that indeed the member has made a very good point. The policy bureaus, FSTB, as well as the FSDC work tirelessly. Let me give you an example. There is a dedicated team under Invest Hong Kong helping family offices to set up presence in Hong Kong. That means they help them learn about the business environment in Hong Kong. They also help them through the incorporation process. And the Hong Kong AWL also has a role to play. Through their activities, they form a platform for these family offices to stay connected. And like the chairman said, if need be, referrals should be made to the bureau. And we are the coordinator, and there is good division of work. The good example I can give is the Wealth for Good in Hong Kong Summit. There are other activities undertaken by the Invest Hong Kong with the help of the Hong Kong AWL. Very often, the family offices may come to Hong Kong not just for the purpose of investment, but for settling down, and we help them learn about the lifestyle in Hong Kong, how they should look for a yacht or a school place, and also the opportunities for holding philanthropic activities. This is exactly what the FSTDC and the advisory groups can do.
I have to extend the meeting time for another 15 minutes. I hope that this will be the last 15 minutes. I'll draw a line. Mr. Ronick Chan. Thank you, Chair. 9 years ago, when I started serving as a member, every year the FSDC came to make its report. I duly recognized their work. And it seems that the resources are inadequate. And every year I appeal for more resources to be committed. On the surface, there has been an increase in 9.7% in the budget. But the absolute amount is still small. And I think they deserve the rise in the budget expenditure. In the coming few years, the Undersecretary, the government will be cutting its expenditure, and I believe that your allocation to the FSDC will also be reduced. But I think on the reverse, we should commit more resources to the FSDC. So, well, it's no long-term solution for the council to fill the shortfall with its reserve. Will the government allow the FSDC to engage in collaborative projects to seek more funding? Say, in terms of the research, if they can partner with some other organizations, then they will have more resources, say, to expand the scope of the research, the depth of the research. Would you categorically allow that to be done? Will the FSDC be allowed to seek external sponsorship for sponsoring the research? The expenditure this year is going to be $2.7 million, and last year the budget was $3 million. So we are doing more research, and there's no reason why the budget for the research will be reduced by 10%. Would you be allowing them to seek more resources from outside? And for the human capital development, the budget is $2 million to organize training sessions and so on. We are in shortage of financial fintech talents, and the country leaders would hope that we can do more to nurture fintech talents. Is the budget enough for us to nurture or identify local fintech talent? The last question is about strengthening external connections. Mr. Hong said that you will visit New York next week. And recently, chambers of commerce have postponed their visits to the U.S. to avoid sensitive subjects. The FSDC will go to the U.S., so what kind of financial subjects will you be exploring into? You have also established the ASEAN Advisory Group and the Middle East Advisory Group. And when you pay overseas visits? Would you be coming up with differentiated strategies? The Xi will visit the Middle East soon. And for, say, ASEAN, we do more in terms of connectivity with the ASEAN market. Who will take the question? Sponsorship. Can I defer to Dr. Au to talk about that? Or the Undersecretary? About the budget and external collaboration and receiving sponsorship. The member is right. In fact, we are actively encouraging the FSDC to flexibly to partner with community organizations, and they can receive sponsorship for their projects. In the past, they have sought sponsorship mainly for their market promotion activities, and we will also encourage them to seek external funding or sponsorship for conducting policy research. And I thank the member for his comment. The FSDC has an important role to play, particularly in market promotion, and they should also be used mobilizing resources in the market to take forward the work. The government will be supportive of that. About talents, can you be brief? It's not that Hong Kong doesn't have the talents. It's a matter of how to attract talents to join the financial sector. So it will be up to the financial sector to do more promotion. In the universities, we should do more to do education. That might not entail a lot of money, but we need a lot of manpower to do promotion in universities. The US and Europe are countries which have the biggest capital pool, and the decisions in allocation of assets is very important, and we have to do a lot of explaining to them. Commercial organizations would like to generate profits from their investment. If we can publicize Hong Kong more, that would be better. And the global financial sector is seeing a reconfiguration which has not been seen in the past century. And we have to explain to these people the opportunities in Hong Kong. We should do the best work. We will continue to go to the US and Europe to do explaining. Middle East and ASEAN. I would like to take this opportunity to explain to you that towards the end of May, we would launch the special program on capacity building for ASEAN countries, and that is the Collaborative Market Capacity Building Program. And if it proves successful, we will do more to attract people from ASEAN to Hong Kong. And in the Middle East, the people there are particularly interested in fintech. Next one, Mr. Edmund Wong. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I would like to know more about the human capital development work of the FSDC. The budget is $2 million. Will be spent on organizing career festival and also other training programs. Paragraph 9, that it hosted its second career festival in collaboration with local universities, benefiting 200 students from 11 local universities. Now, it would network with industry leaders and so on. Hong Kong is an international financial center. If this activity just benefited 11 local universities and 200 students, the figures seem to be on the low side. Can we expand the coverage? And does this $2 million budget cover other talent training programs as well? You talk about overseas visits, or you talk about overseas students, rather. So how would you expand the scope of your programs, talent training programs, I mean? Who would take the question? Dr. Au, please. Thank you, member, for that question. The $2 million budget will also cover research projects. This is our new strategy. Well, there are limitations to what we can do in outreach programs. So starting this year, we will conduct research on a specific sector. Right now, we're doing a research on the insurance sector. We look at how we train up talents needed by the insurance sector in the future. As for overseas students, we're thinking about Hong Kong students going to overseas studies. I know more about universities in the UK. We have given seminars in the UK, and the seminars are were very popular, and there are follow-up inquiries. We are arranging a listed company in Hong Kong to give talks or provide internship for Hong Kong students studying overseas to have internship opportunities in Hong Kong. This is a new attempt. Any follow-up? We talk about family offices and HKAWL. FSDC has similar programs in the past in training up wealth inheritors. There might not be a detailed breakdown of the $2 million. When you try to promote wealth inheritance among Hong Kong students, what is the proportion of that amount for training up people in terms of in areas like wealth inheritance? The HKAWL has its own budget of $4.2 million. And we are partnering with community organizations in the community, and that can alleviate our financial burden. If I were a 19-year-old, I might not be very familiar with the opportunities in my career. And financial sector covers a wide scope, encompassing insurance, asset management, banking, securities, and other areas, digitalization, and so on. So it covers a wide scope. Every student may have to make choices on what to study based on their own interest. So we are hoping that our directors can do something in that regard. And can we further expand the scope of our work? Well, I think that's a very good feedback. I have 3 points to make, and maybe you can give me a consolidated response. Obviously, your work is very important. And how to quantify your work? You are conducting a lot of researchers. How can you quantify your work? That's point number 1. And then, no matter it's TDC and the CEDB, they have different offices, different ETOs and so on all over the world. Your organization is rather a small one. How can you leverage on these offices to help you with your work? How can you broaden your network as a whole? Third point, you conduct a lot of researchers covering a wide scope. But I noticed that you are not conducting too many studies in relation to gold and precious metals and so on. The policy address that mentioned that we should develop Hong Kong International Gold Exchange Center. Would you be conducting studies in those areas, please? Your chairman, you mentioned a very good point, how to quantify or assess our work, whether our work is effective. I don't think it's possible to quantify our work. I think quality matters more. And whether we're talking about family offices, whether you are a treasury center or you are an enterprise, I hope that they can choose Hong Kong as their base. It's difficult to quantify our work. What we're thinking is that how we can encourage different investors from around the world to establish a presence in Hong Kong. This is what we want to see ultimately. And we have to contemplate on what KPIs we should adopt to quantify our work. I will take note of what you said. And then overseas offices. And it's difficult for us to establish our own overseas offices. Rather, we'll leverage the government's ETOs overseas to help us with our liaison work. And this time, I'm going to New York, and I actually seek their assistance in developing a program. And in the short term, I don't think that we can establish our own overseas offices.
Precious metals. That's the last point. We look into different topics. We have bottom-up groups making recommendations. We also have high-level meetings. We take a top-down approach. For example, what should be done to change Hong Kong's positioning in light of the geopolitical tensions. Now, there are just so many policy researches we can do a year. I'd say that the demand always surpasses supply, so we can just focus on the key topics. But of course, we welcome suggestions. Gold and precious metals, of course, will be one major topic. Anything to add? I think that the questions have been answered. Just to quickly supplement about the government, we have requirements imposed on the FSDC. The FSDC is required to submit the 5-year plan and the annual financial statements to the government. So on a yearly basis, we review the relevant reports and publications of the FSDC, whether sufficient numbers have been published. We also considered other activities, seminars, etc. So we consider the work of the FSDC on the basis of the hard indicators. But there are also other matters such as the family offices setting up presence in Hong Kong, a market response, etc. I also thank member for the suggestions. It is important that the government leverage the existing networks, such as the ETOs, different offices of the Invest Hong Kong. For the delegations of the FSDC, they often work with Invest Hong Kong and the ETOs so as to enhance effectiveness and to leverage on the overseas network already built. I also want to supplement gold trading. This is also a recommended topic. We're going to publish a report on commodity trading. Right. Do study these topics. Next, any other business? Nothing under AOB. I thank the FSDC and the FSTB for attending our meeting. There being no other business, the meeting is adjourned. Thank you.